Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing? Are we live?
Yeah, we just went live. This thing. So, of course, it was just on time. So, but I can wait for a few minutes so that to get started. But you know the agenda, and we know you. But most of our followers or most of the people who are looking at Factors.AI are fans of you in multiple levels. So it will be also good for them to get up close uh, to your experiences across some of the legendary companies which we have seen grow. So we can get started with the live.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So, firstly, Mark, thanks a lot for taking time out to talk to us. It's a privilege and a honor to host you here. Uh, very briefly, and what we want to understand is, I mean, we can see your LinkedIn profile. It's studded with like multiple companies like HubSpot, Drift, Airmeet, and your own company, TACK GTM. But if you can go a little further and tell us about your journey into marketing, what got you into the marketing in the first place, maybe school, college, and where you come from, and also how and your experiences across HubSpot and other companies, it'll be really great for us to start with.
Yeah, definitely. So, a few different ways that I ended up in marketing. One is a passion for sales, education, a deep passion for education, and the experience that I saw at the university I went to in New Hampshire. Um, and my first job, which was a small kind of bootstrap company called SalesQuest back in 2008, right at the
Ah,
peak of the Great Recession, Great Global Recession. So I think those things made me realize that my superpower, I didn't know actually my superpower was bringing people together, which is a very important piece of marketing, and
mhm.
it's more important than ever before. How well marketers can bring people together, um, for all sorts of reasons. I think that's like so important these days. But really, it was me doing and studying and trying a lot of different things that led me to find my passion for marketing, and that led me to find HubSpot, and the kind of rest is history.
Oh, that's amazing. And I mean, I saw your growth into HubSpot, right, from 2010 to 8 years or more than 8 years from this thing. And of course, they listed in 2014. How was it in 2010? It would have been what, early stage startup at that point in time, 3 years or 4 years, and you
Yeah,
were
no, it
one
was
of the.
2006 that it was officially founded. I mean, it really was like 2007, 8 when they started to create revenue. I used
Mm-hmm.
HubSpot as one of the first 1,000 businesses to ever actually use HubSpot. That Sales Quest business back in 2008, 2009 was one of the first HubSpot customers ever. And I vividly remember that I was also like a beta tester for the HubSpot Salesforce integration because the business used Salesforce as the CRM,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked phenomenal. Like I was able to rank on Google on page one, in position one for a ton of different keywords, drive direct pipeline from those keywords. Twitter, was Facebook was just getting going. There was so much opportunity. It was really easy. It was easy. Not everything was easy, but it was a lot easier than today. And yeah, you could. The arbitrage opportunity is like you could find people
Mm-hmm.
very fast, and they could find you pretty fast. And there was still like the smartphone was just coming out. All right, 2008 was when Apple released the iPhone. I mean, that was a huge wave
Mm-hmm.
of 10 years of new channels that you could also use, right? But that smartphone innovation also made everyone into a creator. Everyone
Ah,
creates now, and everyone, you could look at it in two different ways. Well, maybe more than two ways, but you could either look at it as people are polluting these channels or are actually adding value to these channels. Either way, though, there's more people publishing and creating content to uh, a channel set that is not growing as fast as much
ah,
as the content and data is being pumped into these channels. So early days with HubSpot, it was like a Series B company. I think when I joined, maybe they just raised Series C. Again, very different times. They only raised like a total of I think $120 million.
okay, wow.
very, very responsible. They had a plan in mind. The big thing that I came in to help with, not really knowing until I joined, was to help fix customer retention, fix customer value, customer success, customer retention. And that led us to building HubSpot Academy. And yeah, we can get
Was
into
that a
that.
problem at that point in time? Did HubSpot have a lot of churn at that point in time? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
why was that so? What was the reason
Oh,
behind
many
it?
reasons. Not effective customer success management from a customer point of view. They didn't have really a CSM team. You had like 90 days onboarding, and that was it. You're kind of like left to your own vice at that point. The product, there was some product issues. It's an early stage company, like a lot of companies, right? But they really focused on how do we get both gross and net dollar retention, in a better spot. And they aligned the entire business around a plan called Merry Mofu monetization. And that plan led us to IPO, which then led us and HubSpot to, now $2 billion in revenue. It was a 3 or 4 year very focused strategy, which I think is what's plaguing most startups these days. Yes, sure, you have to maybe pivot your business or pivot your product. But there's too many people potentially not giving enough time or thought, and letting things develop, and having conviction to let them develop, versus just, every 3-6 months you're changing your strategy. And I don't know where that's going to get you, honestly.
Actually, I have very interesting points, both from your original HubSpot discussion, where you said it was easy to find people, easy to rank on search keyword. It was maybe an era where also Google search was more cheaper than what it is now, and a lot lesser competition, to the current GTM motions in the current era where things can be very different. Or the same, if HubSpot is started now, I don't think they would succeed with the same kind of strategies which they did at that point in time. Or
Absolutely.
would you say that, or would you be you might still want to repeat the same set of things, or how would you?
No. I mean, everything always changes, right? That's like a given in the world. So no, you couldn't use the same playbook that HubSpot used 15 years ago now, 15, 16, 17 years ago. It doesn't exist. I mean, like SEO, it is a much harder game, and you probably is going to be over time disrupted through the new layer. It's either a new, I mean, it's probably AI is going to be applied to all parts of the value chain, right? No matter what type of value chain you're looking at. So, yeah, I mean, it's gonna get changed. SEO is, and social is gonna get impacted by AI. Everything will, right? Every channel. And my big belief is AI should hopefully help us build new channels, because that's what people need. And you start to see this through niching down with communities, like what we've done with Club PF, and companies building their own community. It's like, how do you cut through the noise a bit? It's like, well, you bring people together in smaller groups versus trying to have a mass one-to-many audience, right? So I do think AI is going to help a lot with building new channels. It's just a matter of how and when, and whoever thinks of that as a business model and succeeds is going to make a lot of money.
That's interesting. So, I mean, of course, HubSpot started with the inbound marketing and the inbound GTM. And now it's a different era. It's 15 years later. And you are talking about people-led GTM. So trying to understand, what is people-led GTM in the first place, and why do you think this would be maybe a differentiated way for driving revenue for the startups or companies in this era?
And so people first GTM, we call it people first GTM. People first GTM is an evolution of inbound marketing in some way. Like inbound marketing in its pure sense was a different angle, different take on content marketing. And I actually think content marketing, I'm gonna do a post maybe about this today. It's teed up. It's gonna be a controversial post maybe. I think content marketing is at a major inflection point and needs to greatly evolve. Like I wouldn't want to be a content marketer anymore. I would want to be a content growth marketer, a content-led growth marketer. And there's a big difference there, right? In the traditional sense, content marketing, by the way, is defined in the dictionary as a term. You can go to the dictionary right now. You can go to Google content marketing definition, and it's been validated by Oxford. And the way it's defined, it's very much about creating stuff, right, in digital formats, But and it talks about like distribution, like very briefly at a high level. But now content marketing, what I think is now content-led growth, has changed, because you can't just create content as a brand and expect people to find it and pay attention to it. It just doesn't work. Like before you could. Like when I was at Sales Quest, I could create an article about almost like kind of any keyword and publish it on behalf of Sales Quest. People would find it and they would read it. That does not happen anymore for the most part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, people have so much noise, and I don't think whether the people still use Google the same way they used to use Google in those days.
yeah, no, definitely
And
not. So it's changed, right? So it's taking it's a mindset shift, it's a belief shift, and then it's like, how do you think about channels? Like Google is a very transactional channel. I don't, it's, yeah, sure, you're gonna use attribution tools to say, yeah, we saw this much organic search from Google, but like, years ago, I think it was like 2014, 15, they shut off the ability to even see which keywords drove traffic to your website.
yes.
So it's like, I don't know, like it's the writing's been on the wall for a long time. And then all the recent stuff that's come out, which is no surprise, with Google now changing how they think about email deliverability, which I'm so happy Google's doing this. And Apple not allowing to track emails for the most part. It's all changing, right? So by the way, these changes goes back to my point around some groups of people are going to create new channels. They're going to be better and hopefully more like people first, which is going to unlock new ways for us to communicate and connect with one another. And that's very exciting, I think.
Have you seen any companies do that from people, or unlock new ways to communicate, or new communities?
No,
or
I've not yet. I mean, the evolution that we've seen so far is messaging, right? What did the smartphone evolution and revolution create? It was moving from, email and phone calls and direct mail, or like, snail mail, to messaging. That is the predominant way every generation talks for the most part. I mean, I could be wrong there with like maybe people over 70, but I mean, it's no doubt millennials and below, they message more than anything, right? So
yes, they do. And Snapchat is also very, very big in millennials, and the way it interacts is very, very different from how even the Facebook generation looked at it.
Yeah. So it's like, what's after messaging? Is there anything after messaging? I don't know. That's to me, like messaging is like it's not even infrastructure, right? It's like it's just it's almost like the highest kind of level use case, right? Like you could use the phone, you could use messaging, but messaging now is built into so many different applications, so many different services, so many different experiences. So it's like, I don't know, like, they're talking about conversational interfaces being a big piece of it. Is that an evolution of messaging? It could be. But I think going back to the point, it's around, we're at this really awesome point where I think, like a lot of people have been saying, like innovation is about to just take off. And I think AI is being applied in a lot of just uninteresting ways right now. Like I could give two craps about AI powered email sequences. Like, I just don't care about that. Like that doesn't,
And that too in an era where emails are going to get kind of like blocked, or like deleted, or spam filtered by Google and Microsoft Outlook and others.
Yeah, because like a lot of people are not asking like the second order question, right? It's like second order thinking. That's a concept. They're thinking first order thinking, but they're not thinking like further enough out, in my opinion. And that's where like the big $1 billion ideas are sitting. Because a lot of what's happening with AI now is people are just building tools. Tools will not create like really big companies. You might make $1 million, $5 million, maybe 10, maybe a little bit more than $10 million company if you're a tool. You're not gonna be able to scale, to 100 million plus with a tool. You're just not, right? So, especially with so many tools being created in the last 5 years for RevTech. Like
RevTech and MarTech has been like
tech,
yeah.
So I don't know.
How do you see HubSpot's evolution in this? I think the company has been more than 17, almost 20 years, going to be 20 years old now. I mean, in another 3 years or so. And it has evolved pretty fantastically. I mean, there have been many companies which didn't do so well, or they plateaued after a certain range or after this thing. But it's like they're now at almost $2 billion in revenue. So the way they moved from, let's say, being a unicorn, 100, 200, this thing, it's pretty fantastic. Maybe it's in the DNA of the company, and they are, I think, one thing which when we talk to any MarTech or RevTech company, they think everyone would compete with HubSpot in some form because every tool would compete with HubSpot. So how do you think HubSpot is handling this challenge, or in terms of AI and how this thing? Any views and thoughts about it, given you have been an insider for a very long time?
I don't know too much about what they're doing with AI right now, but I will say, like, generally that, like, they have like 4 things that they've just executed. 4 things they've done so well. One is execution, but one is timing, people, execution, and luck. Right? There's always a little bit of luck. So if you look at those 4 things, and as it relates to your business, is your timing right? Do you have an amazing team? Like, how, like, your people, both internally and externally, like how much are you leaning into your customers? HubSpot, like, literally created the culture code and the customer code. That's all about their people. Dharmesh is a brilliant person, and he understood that the famous Peter Drucker quote, 99% of business is people, 1% is everything else, right? So then they did such a good job of, like, getting people to believe in something and work together and execute. It's just execution, right? Like, that is it's a big part of everything, right? And then there's of course a little bit of luck, right? But HubSpot is building an ecosystem. And ultimately, no matter what type of business you are, a small local business, down the road from me, or a HubSpot, you can build ecosystems. And what that really means is you can build a community of different people, businesses, etc., around your brand that all economically, in some way, maybe indirectly or directly, get value through the network you've created. Right? It's about, like, that, that kind of inherent economic value, and that is where HubSpot is excelling, right? Like, because the more you lean in there, the more defensibility is created, the more distribution leverage and advantage you have, and that also gives you access to a diversification is super important as well, diverse set of people, ideas, products that can benefit you, but also, most importantly, benefit your customers. And the last thing I'll say about HubSpot is the other D that I paid a lot of attention to is they did a tremendous job of differentiating, both at the product level and at the thought leadership point of view category level.
Oh, that's impressive. I think, HubSpot deserves several books or webinars and others just to look around. But after that happened Drift, right? You worked at Drift as well, which also, I think, from a marketing standpoint, was kind of like some of the few companies we look up to by actually talking about a new category, something like revenue acceleration. It's not chat, but it's revenue acceleration. So they changed the concept. There were many chatbots before Drift. There were multiple chat companies. I remember one of my co-founders built the first version of FreshChat, and before that, his company got acquired by Freshworks, and there were so many others. But Drift came in and changed the whole conversation around chat, saying that it's not like a chatbot, it's not something about you chat about, but it's actually a revenue acceleration machine. How did your journey in Drift evolve? So that would have been after 2018. So then, when they were a little mature company, and how they evolved, and also most importantly, you started community at Drift. So
Drift built conversational marketing. I mean, they labeled what it was, a chatbot, as a new way to do marketing, and I think they were just a little bit. I mean, the timing was very good. And they did what I recommend now every company does, which is build an MVA. You know what an MVA is?
Minimum viable product, or minimum viable
audience.
So,
MVA.
Okay.
And HubSpot did the same thing with their blog, by the way. I mean, maybe they launched their blog before the product or vice versa. I don't know. But I feel like, what companies try to do now is they build the product, but then, like, all right, we built the product, now get the audience. No, build the audience, start building the product too with that audience. And now you actually have a little bit of distribution leverage. So that's where Drift succeeded so well, where they used a very great asset the Seeking Wisdom podcast. Huge kudos to Dave Gerhardt for using that as a way to be the spark for this movement around conversational marketing, which led into conversational sales, which led into Drift is a revenue acceleration platform because it creates less friction. It's a faster experience. It's a more streamlined experience if deployed correctly. And that's the biggest challenge with any of this technology. How you deploy it, right? Most of MarTech and sales tech, rev tech requires change management. So that's why education is so important. It's not about educating people just pre-sale. The businesses who are the best educators will be the most successful. And that's where I see so many businesses failing today. They're thinking shiny media. They're thinking all this stuff like, sure, shiny media is cool. Awesome. Yes, own media. I completely agree with it. We have the TACK network now. But we also built Club PF to be a great resource of education for people. This is very deliberate because without the education, trying to get someone to remember something, to understand something and master something, to create actual change within themselves or their organization, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to do.
True.
So I think that's a key lesson for anyone listening here too, right? When it comes to HubSpot, Drift, Airmeet, but those things like education, own media, etc. It's not a short-term game. You can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna do this for 3 or 6 months and like we're good. Like no. It's like consistent effort for years, and it starts to compound.
That's actually a very interesting point because it's like one thing is like beyond, of course, you need great marketing. You need to generate a minimum viable audience to get this thing. But beyond a point, there is marketing can take the product and the company to a certain level. But beyond that, for it to actually become a great company, you need a lot of education, or people need to understand, use the product on a consistent basis, or able to use the product very easily.
Yeah.
Either ways for them. I mean, Salesforce might not be the easiest product to use, but in one sense, they have built a whole ecosystem of people who would set up Salesforce for you.
Yeah. Oh, Salesforce was great at this. And actually, right after HubSpot Academy started to get some legs and big, they announced Trailhead. They announced Salesforce Trailhead. So yeah, I mean, look at those two companies, massive ecosystems, an SMB ecosystem, an enterprise ecosystem. What do? They educate. I mean, that's it. I mean, if all you did was create a great product and educate, you would see a lot of success.
Actually, you mentioned two things there. One, you talked a lot about timing. Second, you also talked about education. So how does TACK GTM and Club PF both come into these two things? Both from a timing perspective, why now? And also from a education perspective, what does it actually educate, and how do B2B marketing professionals or go-to-market professionals actually gain from TACK GTM?
Well, yeah, TACK is three things, right? There's three components of the business. There's this TACK network, which is the HBO of B2B go-to-market. It just launched. We're super early, but that's our vision, HBO B2B go-to-market. We put it out there. Club PF is the membership club and community for people who want to learn the latest and most important go-to-market skills and strategies. Think of it as, you want to get into peak go-to-market fitness, come to Club PF, right? That's more education. And then TACK GTM is the on-demand go-to-market strategy and services side of the business, right? That's where we come in and get embedded into your company and help you with your go-to-market in a very tactical one-to-one way. And we have a whole team, we call it the crew of people that help with that. But like all of that is built on a foundation of something bigger than TACK. And that's this idea of people first go-to-market. And that's what HubSpot did with inbound marketing. And that's what Drift did with conversational marketing. And that's what we were trying to do at Airmeet with event-led growth. Which, by the way, I'm so excited to see so many companies talking about event-led growth right now. It's like,
yes,
it's beautiful. It's exactly what I would have hoped to have happened. But anyway, like it's you need something bigger than that. And that's where people conflate these like terms of category creation and whatever. Like there's software categories. And then there's categories that create movements. It's two different things. And they can intersect. They can definitely intersect, right? But it's in your best interest to focus more on the category that creates a movement, and that maybe that blends into eventually a new software category, or attaches itself to one or two that are already in existence. And for me, that's what TACK is all about. It's helping people understand this new evolved way of going to market. We tried to take all of the things that people were talking about, community-led growth, content-led growth, product-led growth, customer-led growth. And there's 7 growth motions that we identified that are truly about how do you use relationships and partnerships to grow your revenue, to create the interest at the top, to capture that interest and turn it into revenue, and to convert the revenue so that through education, through just a great experience, that revenue you brought in, those customers, you convert them into just people that are so happy, so just delighted, so excited to be an advocate for you that it spins the flywheel, right? It's been because the flywheel creation was one of the last things I did at HubSpot with Brian Darmesh and a larger team. We updated the inbound methodology from this 4-step process to this 3-step flywheel, attract, engage, delight. And it's spot on. I just feel like now people needed something bigger than just attract, engage, delight. You needed a way to think about how do you build trust in the market? That's through content, events, and products, free products, paid products. How do you activate those things you build? It's not about, like, again, like we talked about organic search, like that's just a transactional channel. It's about, no, how do you actually create engaging conversations in the right places, both online and in person? That's community-led growth. And then how, to your point, you said we built a community at Drift. We did. Drift Insider, that's member-led growth. Drift Insider was an awesome example. So was HubSpot Academy. Same with Sales Hacker and Outreach. Now it's, GTM now. That's an owned community. That's a member-led growth approach. And then, of course, you got to partner with your customers and lean heavily into customer-led growth to do what I was just saying with the flywheel. So we thought that, like, look, this model, like, are you going to do all 7 things if you're an early stage startup? No, do not do all 7 things. That's insane. But once you get to a point, you will do all 7 things. If you look at all of the public companies, tech or not tech, they're doing all 7 things. And that's what we're going to teach more people about. We're going to teach people through real examples of, like, how are companies taking these things and applying them into their business model, and using them to grow at the end of the day, right? Like, I mean, HubSpot's taglines grow better. And yeah, I think this can be a way to grow better. Instead of going to market alone, you go to market together, and it's more human.
That's interesting. It actually brought to my mind some interesting viewpoints as well. One is, like, you have this multiple growth models. In a sense, like, there are events, there are communities that can be like your inbound and your blogs and other thing. Ads and channels is one other thing. Chat can be another thing. Conversationals and so many other aspects of it. All of these center around the customer or the people around the customers. So there are multiple buyer personas. But one other interesting thing is all of these, let's say if any company starts investing in any of these channels or multiple channels. So, I mean, at a seed stage, nobody's going to do multiple. They're just going to do one outbound or inbound or a couple of things. But at a certain scale, as you mentioned, a large enterprise would do at least 7 or all these or 5 of these, all these outbound models. This generates a lot of data. Is there a huge AI opportunity by picking out signals from all these different kinds of GTM models, then combining them and then plan interventions around? I mean, I'm still talking a little broad level or something, but have you looked at, like, how AI can apply on the data generated by all these go-to-market?
I think that's where AI will shine. Yeah, I mean, if do you mind if I pull up the model to help put context to this? Like,
sure.
Let me just share my screen here. So, like, inbound, outbound, in my opinion, that's just a let me see if I can get it on the screen. It looks like you guys have to add it to the.
You can present here.
Yeah, it looks like someone just has to add it to the stream. But anyway,
just
what I'm saying is, like, outbound, outbound sales sourced, inbound marketing sourced. That to me is, like, that's what that means. Like, I don't like the terms inbound, outbound as a way to think about go to market anymore. Like, I think they're way too high level, like way too high level. Like, there's a movement around inbound. Inbound is about how do you bring people into your company in a way that is helpful, human. How do you attract them through all these different means now? How do you engage them? How do you delight them? That is inbound, right? But, like, now it's inbound's become way more complicated because of everything we already talked about. So when you look at these 7 different motions in people first go to market, it's going to help your inbound a lot. It's going to make your inbound super more powerful, no doubt. It will also help your outbound because you're not going to do a lot of cold outbound. You're going to do a lot more warm and hot outbound, in my opinion. So when you think about this, you're right. It's going to create a lot of data, like especially when you think about the first party data and the second party data that you can get from all this. Yes. I do think that AI will be applied in a sense of intelligent process automation. There's robotic process automation, which is kind of unintelligent. And then there's like IPA, intelligent process automation. And if you apply the idea of IPA to almost any type of go-to-market function or piece in the process, say it's I want to figure out how to move a stage 0 pipeline deal to a stage 2, and there's some AI tools and technology that can help us do that. That's definitely going to happen. I mean, it's already happening today to some degree, but is it happening really well? I don't know. The jury's out on that. Hey, am I going to apply AI to help me understand how to do better targeting and engagement of my audience when I'm trying to create demand? Yeah, there'll probably be, like I was saying, a new channel even created that's going to help someone do this, right? So I think your question about like data, there's going to be more and more data than ever before. In fact, I have another slide that shows how much data is going to increase over the next like few years. It's exponential growth. But no, it's not going to increase very exponentially. In fact, in about 67 years, it's going to plateau and then probably start declining, according to estimates. It's the growth population of the world.
Okay.
As a fact, at least according to the forecasts that I looked at.
Possible. I mean, China has already started declining.
Yeah.
India is now the largest population, but yeah, India will grow for some more time. But I think the rest of the world is also declining, except for Africa and India.
Yeah. So where do you go? Like, there's gonna be more noise, more data, more stuff. AI is gonna help us sift through all that and hopefully use it a lot better and give us like more freedom. But you're going to lean more into the people. So like, I think of AI in two ways. There's artificial intelligence. Sweet, love it. A lot of good things are going to come from it. And I'm more excited about the stuff that's going to come from it from like a more human standpoint, like healthcare, climate change, crime, mental health. Like AI for business, that's great. Very capitalistic. It's going to be good and help. But like, I think businesses are going to have to like lean more and more into what I call authentic interactions, the other type of AI versus just artificial intelligence. If they pivot too far into just thinking AI is going to be the everything, you're going to lose touch with what makes your business great, which is, like we talked about before, people.
I could see the amazing marketer in you. I mean, you moved from AI, artificial intelligence, to authentic interactions. Did you coin that, or is it?
I have no idea. Just two words. I don't care. But to my point is, you can call it whatever you want. Genuine interactions, helpful interactions. Like it's really about it's about like leaning into the human side of what ultimately is going to decide, the success of your business, at least right now. I mean, is there a world where AI buys AI? Probably. I mean, who knows? It's crazy what's going to happen, probably. But I think right now it's at least for the next decade plus, it's people.
No, actually, you made a pretty good point, and I think from a data standpoint, given that I come from more on the engineering side, one thing is there's going to be a lot of data. The good part now is a lot of data is getting captured in the right way. Earlier, there used to be community interactions. There used to be event interactions. There used to be other forms of interactions in multiple levels. Ability to capture them itself was a problem. But even if you capture them, they were in large CDPs, which was in separate silos. Ability to bring them together in a timeline series or a telemetry form to say that, okay, this happened, then something else happened in parallel towards this, which happened. That's one thing is happening now. How AI can actually look through paths and patterns within this to say that of all the things which are happening, if you are a human and you are getting kind of like overwhelmed with the kind of data which you're seeing, I can sort this out and say that these are the things that you need to focus on. So, I mean, you might want to interact with people and you might want to have genuine interactions, but AI can help you actually focus on who you want to genuinely interact to.
Yeah, signal to noise. Yeah. Yep.
Signal to noise.
Yep.
And once you take that signal and with that artificial intelligence which gives it, then you can actually activate it in different forms. As you said, it's like, can you monetize that into revenue? Can you make that into something which is building trust in terms of like proper genuine interactions? Or can you also use that for a timing methodology? There is something like, how do you actually time your responses? How do you actually time your this thing? Because nothing is something like which I want now immediately. It's always something like there are interactions happening. There are sometimes where peaks happen, where people are ready to buy or wanting to talk to and other this thing. And then you can build around that. I think it's a signal, or converting the data into signals and signals into some form of intelligence and then build into the revenue. That can be the whole model over the next 10 years. And all this centered around the people so that people actually sift through the noise and this thing. That's
I mean,
something
I
which
don't
I'm thinking
disagree
of.
with most of that. I mean, I think the big thing that's missing from that whole thing though is okay, great. You prioritized it, you sifted through it, you learned from it. It's like, okay, you got all the stuff. You got everything you need. What do the people do, and do they know how to do it? Education. It's we're talking way too much with this technology stuff right now. Like, okay, you gave me an awesome new technology that does all these things. How the hell do I use it?
It's true. And education can happen people to people. So it's more like it's not going to be possible to just preach to everyone. Would be more easier to preach through other people, or like,
yeah, I mean, look, like you need to do both, right? I learned this from David Cancel, the CEO, now executive chairman of Drift. It's never one or the other. Typically, it's always both. That's why I said there's two types of AI for me. There's different things you need to do. You have to like both like create the signals, but then you also need to understand how to use the signals. And like, look, you could have the best signals, but if you stink at using them in the context of sales, they are, I would argue, worthless.
I mean, you're going to be very, very inefficient.
So I think like that's the challenge for a lot of these AI companies is they're like so excited about the tech, but wait a minute. Like, first off, like there's still a lot of like hesitation, and will continue to be a lot of hesitation, especially at bigger companies, about like deploying this tech. People don't know how to deploy it, what they trust, who they trust, what they should or shouldn't do with it. I will give a massive shout out to the Marketing AI Institute. If you folks are listening and have not checked out the Marketing AI Institute, it is a must resource. Subscribe to the newsletter, listen to their podcast. They've been around since 2016, way before any of this noise over the last 10 months has come out. And they are teaching, they are educating, right? So I think that's what a lot of AI companies have to do. They have to think about how do they teach people the benefits, the consequences, the pitfalls, the hey, watch outs, around the AI technology they're building.
That's interesting. So one last thing which I just wanted to ask before I get into a lot more tactical stuff. The event-led growth model at Airmeet, which is one, of course, a very different form at stage of company, because HubSpot grew into a very large company from Series B to an IPO and other thing. Drift was also, when you joined, it was a much larger company and it was a unicorn already. But Airmeet was a little different, and it's actually a totally maybe an industry which just got born out of COVID during the COVID this thing. How was your experience at Airmeet, and most importantly, what was the concept of event-led growth? How did you come about it? How did you market it? What were the kind of learnings, both successes and failures around this?
I mean, they asked me to join as the marketing leader and like come up with the category. I'm like, okay, that's easier said than done. But like a category is typically best suited when there's patterns that exist. So what's the pattern for inbound marketing? Marketing. You associate, and it's also not just patterns, I should say, it's association. So you associate inbound with the word marketing. It's like, I know marketing. What's inbound marketing? Oh, I can explain that to you in 10 seconds. Yeah, I get it now. So people knew product-led growth. People knew sales-led growth, all these models, right? So and I looked and like, is event-led growth a valid way to think about it? Meaning, do events produce data, and do events help drive revenue? The answer is yes and yes, but most companies and people didn't focus on that, care about that at all. And then I started to look at companies who used events in a really strategic way. Probably the ultimate example would be Salesforce and HubSpot in the SaaS world. And they're driving so much money and revenue. I mean, Mark Benioff,
Dreamforce and Inbound have been like legendary.
Well, those are the flagship events. They do thousands of events now across the 12-month calendar year, right? So a company's not going to invest tens of millions of dollars doing thousands of events if it doesn't have an impact.
Good.
And you don't just do in-person events anymore. That's what COVID taught us, right? So COVID was an undeniable thing that happened, and that created first and second order consequences. And it created like, hey, you need to do more online virtual events. Now, of course, that's now leveled out, and there's a new version of what is a virtual event. It's not this COVID style event anymore. And there's always been webinars. And what is a webinar? I mean, it's tomato. It's an event. It's an online event. You can call it whatever you want. A webinar is a seminar. A seminar is an in-person version of a webinar. Okay, fine. So yeah, through all that research, that digging, my experience with events, talking to people, it kind of came obvious. Like event-led growth is what we should call this thing.
Awesome. And how is the success around that? I mean, I know quite a few firms are using it in talking about it at least, but how was the early success? What are the kind of, I mean, can you talk about any of your kind of experiences from that?
I'll say the biggest thing when you try to create a category is you got to get the whole company aligned to it, like in a big way. Everyone, product, sales, marketing, CS, everyone's got to be talking about it. Everyone's got to be building ultimately towards that vision, right? And if that conviction and alignment doesn't exist from the very top through all the entire organization, it won't work as well. That's bar none, right? So that were some of the headwinds, I think, maybe at Airmeet, unlike Drift and HubSpot, right? Like it's not just a matter of like creating something and all right, cool, we did it. No, you have to use that as a cultural force, both internally and outside your company, to create the belief in someone's mind.
Something like creating a religion around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, yeah, it's like what we're doing with people first go to market. We're going to be talking about this for years, 5, 10 years. I'm going to do this talk that I'm having with you today thousands of times, guaranteed. I've already done it probably over 100 times. And Nick, my co-founder, is doing it too. So that's what it takes. It's infused into your sales process. It's infused into your marketing. It's infused into how you onboard customers. It's infused into everything. And what is that though? What is that at the end of the day? That is education. That is teaching something, a new belief to someone and helping them understand why they should care about it, why now, and how to do it.
It's actually, I mean, some parts of this conversation have been so educative to me, and it's also made me thinking. It's like, in one sense, you can even go back to, I mean, you talked about building an ecosystem. Large companies actually build an ecosystem. I mean, you can be a $10 million or even $100 million unicorn. But if you want to be a great company, or if you want to be this thing, you have to eventually form an ecosystem. That's something which we learned from HubSpot. And about the whole model about like creating a movement around a category or any concept around that. So it's something like a religion, and that goes back into how even certain ideas become powerful. And eventually, I mean, formation of early religions from a business standpoint, if you look at it as a case study, how something like a Buddhism or any other larger religions develop, how their leaders actually develop that with a philosophy, with creating a movement, making people believe that they want to be part of it. Good learnings to take from that and apply into businesses at maybe at a micro level, at much micro level than this thing.
Yeah, I mean, most religions, Christianity is like it's a big business. It is. I mean, most religions are a big business, either in direct ways or indirect ways, right? Through the rituals of marriage or something else. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, the Bible or Bibles, like, what is that, right? That's your manifesto. Every business should have a manifesto. Yeah, I mean, every business should have a Bible.
That's good. I think we can use that as well. Coming back to a little more tactical things. I mean, a lot of gems through the conversation. But more importantly, one thing which I've seen a lot of learnings happen is when things don't happen or things don't work out as you expected. There is an element of luck, or things can go wrong in execution or strategy or even in the thought process. Can you share your battle scars where things really went wrong, and given all your 15-year experience across these things?
Like failures you're asking about, kind of?
Failures, yes, more like failures.
Yeah, I mean, failures, I think
Or
I'm just
you can
like,
also even talk about like what you saw other companies doing well and then, or making mistakes or other thing can
well, I think
even
the
share.
biggest failure is not enough focus. And that's both for me, the teams I led, the CEOs of companies. Like, if you don't focus enough, you're going to be in trouble. And that goes back to the comment I made, I don't know, half an hour ago about like, every 3 months, 6 months, we're changing strategy. We're doing this different thing. Like, controlled chaos is fine for the most part. Uncontrolled chaos is extremely dangerous. So I think when you think about failure, I try to fail as soon as possible and learn as fast as possible. So, I can't think of like one mega failure, quite frankly. There's been a ton of micro failures along the way, like significant. One thing that I failed to do initially with HubSpot Academy was not focus enough on data. And that was a mistake. And since that day, I am now obsessed with data. And of course, I'm obsessed with the art of marketing, but I'm super obsessed with the science of marketing. It's why we put like that. It's why each of these 7 growth motions in this model is backed by a data model. Like, I could tell you, here are the inputs for product-led growth. Here are the inputs for event-led growth. And if you look at those inputs, it creates these outputs. That's data, right? It goes back to your comment around, well, all these things are just, you could use data to find the signals. Yes, absolutely. Partner-led's a little trickier, but all the other ones are very, very evident that they are data-backed. So yes, I think not paying enough attention to data. So the other thing that I'd recommend everyone do is, and we do this with all of our TACK customers where it makes sense, is we do weekly pacing. We call it like, literally weekly goal pacing. No matter if you use the V2 MOM framework, the OKR framework, some other type of goal setting framework, you're going to have a call in literally 10, 12 minutes with one of TACK GTM's customers. And it's the go-to-market revenue executive call. And we're going to look through the last week of key numbers at both the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 level. And we'll learn quickly what's working, what's not working. So we avoid a big failure, hopefully. Of course, sometimes you just fail because, like, look, you tried really hard and like something happened and you failed. I mean, look what happened with COVID. COVID affected a lot of businesses and some failed. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, that some of it's unavoidable, but the more that you can try to control your own destiny by thinking at least 1 or 2 steps ahead, the less chance you'll have a catastrophic failure. So I think failure in your question is all relevant to the size and scope.
So yeah, it shouldn't be a catastrophic, or as long as you survive or you're able to survive through your failures or fail fast and then find other alternatives. So that's a good thing. Coming to a little more, the thing from a GTM angle as well, or even from your marketing angle as well. How did you, I mean, at least in the earlier era, now it's like a lot more data signals and people first. How did you look at measurement of marketing and measurement of marketing impact into revenue? How was that coming through for you?
I think it's just like the standard way that everyone does, right? Like, you have your funnel, and now you look at quality over quantity of that funnel. I mean, for me, it's engagement, pipeline, and revenue, and then it could be literally hundreds of data points underneath each of those when it comes to what you would want to track. What are the leading indicators? Engagement. What are the to pipeline? What's the leading indicators to revenue? Pipeline. And revenue ultimately is the leading indicator to efficiency. So if I had to add one more, it would be efficiency. But like, I think another one that's top of mind for a lot of people these days is cost. It's kind of the inversion. So, I think of 5 key metrics that fit within all of those high level, like tier 1 labels, which would be volume, conversion rates, velocity, value, and cost. And if you break those down, the engagement volume, the engagement conversion
The
rate,
funnel
the
conversion rate.
engagement
Yeah.
velocity, right? The engagement value, like the value of that engagement. If you get to that level, you definitely value pipeline and revenue, obviously, and then the cost of that engagement. I mean, you have a pretty standard model, and again, like that goes back to where I think AI could help marketers understand this. Like I have a very well thought through budgeting. You could call it like a budgeting. It's more than a sheet, like a framework and a portfolio for businesses that we bring in as well to help. And that that budgeting framework plus the weekly pacing, and then you start to wrap that up into a quarterly view, you start to see some pretty interesting things pretty quickly. And I think that's where people don't focus either on the right numbers, or they don't focus enough on the numbers on a weekly basis. If you're only looking at numbers on a monthly basis, I think that's the wrong approach. It's got to be every week.
That's interesting. That's on the measurement and other side. What about the other part in terms of overall brand metrics or positioning, or how do you measure impacts around that?
Engagement. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, if you create a Bible, a manifesto, how many people engage with it? If you have a webinar about that or speak about it at an event, what's the sentiment? What's the reaction? Some of these things can be measured, some of them can't be, but it's engagement, both quality and quantity.
That's good. Cool. I think that's been a lot of learnings for me personally, and I have been taking notes, and maybe I'd be writing quite a few LinkedIn posts and even blog posts around this, because around what you had talked about at an overall level, like how do you create a Bible, or what you have to look at in terms of multiple signals, timing, how that matters, how did early learnings from HubSpot and Drift. So it's been a huge amount of learning for me. Thanks a lot, Mark. And this is a live, we would also be then publishing multiple short videos about this, and also putting this live on YouTube as well. And best of luck for your people at GTM Motion, and your religion of people-led motion, or people first GTM, for it to grow and for you to preach.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And thank you for being an early supporter of it all as well. You were one of the first 100 people that really dove into this. So thank you for that. And if this resonated with you folks, like, join the movement, help us evangelize this. Cause just like we did like 10, 15 years of educating people at HubSpot, and they're still doing this today, and all that education is still super valid because it's the foundation. Now it's like, hey, now you know how to create good content, take it to the next level with using a content-led growth motion to take that content and think about it in a much deeper, more thoughtful way. Like, right, if HubSpot Academy and like Club PF as an example, like, they don't compete, because we're trying to teach people, number one, different things, but also at a different level of kind of mastery, if you will, right? Like there's different, you need to know how to create good content. Club PF ain't going to really teach you that per se. We're going to teach you more holistically about how to use the content you're creating across the entire customer journey to ultimately create that word of mouth flywheel. Because the ultimate end goal of all this people first go to market stuff is stronger word of mouth, building that ecosystem, no matter what scale you're talking about, and also building a more lovable, enduring brand. Like, those three things should be the outcome. They are the outcome of the companies who've applied this already. And if your company starts, out of the gate with something like this, I think you'll just be set up for better success long term. You definitely will be. And there's tons of examples, like Databox. Databox is an amazing company founded by a former HubSpot executive who started the HubSpot channel program, Pete Caputa. They are doing people first go to market, and they've been doing it before I even, I guess you could say, coined the term, in a tremendous way. And their example is they've written hundreds, if not thousands, of blog articles by partner-led with experts about a specific topic that they know is a keyword that they want to rank for over time. And they have now created a huge library of content that is now, because they did it for so long and they did it with such thought, is creating a massive SEO benefit and equity, search equity, for Databox. I mean, that's just a great example of partner-led and content-led coming together. And now they're using that to create conversations in these communities. So they're taking that and using that from a community-led standpoint. So yeah, kudos to that company in particular.
That's pretty amazing in terms of most companies identify keywords, write a blog around it, or write a couple of other blogs, and some might be even clickbaiting. But identify keywords, work with experts, create very good, deep, resourceful content, and then let it rank over a period of time. And this you consistently do it over multiple years, so that you actually create a very strong root base for this.
Yeah. And the play there now is actually would be to have that person that helps you create that piece of content, publish it to their LinkedIn if they're willing to, and you might have to pay them for this, because that gives you instant distribution versus waiting for the long tail distribution of effects of SEO to kick in.
That's also there. Just that sometimes LinkedIn makes it very difficult for people to leave the LinkedIn platform. It's read from there, and then they have to click and link around that.
Yeah, again, like I'm not too concerned about that, right? Like, over time, your brand will stand out, value will be created, and people will know what to do.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Mark. Thanks. It's been
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.